Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ Envy, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We got a special guest on the line right now, Robert Greene. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Now they
Robert, what's up, my man? You know you're one of my favorite authors. What's happening?
Not much. What's going on with you? Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Now they said you haven't left the house. They said you have been home and you taking this COVID and pandemic very serious.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm writing a book. When you're writing, I'm writing another book. When you're writing, you have to kind of stay home. You know, I can't do too much partying and also write a book.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm sort of a homebody.
What's this book about, Robert?
The new book?
Yeah.
The book I'm writing about is I'm talking about what I call the sublime. I discuss it a little bit in my in the Laws of Human Nature, the last chapter, about confronting your own mortality, confronting the fact that your days are numbered and how you deal with it, and how you can kind of turn the kind of worst aspect of being alive into something actually very beautiful. And so I'm kind of creating a new philosophy, a new way of looking at the world. I hate to use the word, it's a book that's a little more spiritual than my other books, if you will. But it's something that I've been wanting to write for many years. And then recently, you know, with my stroke, with nearly dying, coming very, very close to dying, it kind of changed me in some ways. So that's sort of basically what the new book is.
Well, no. Why do you not like to use words like spiritual, Robert? I love words like spiritual. I like to hear you talk like that.
It's kind of overused a little bit. I mean, you know, what am I really talking about? And, you know, my books usually have kind of an edge. I'm a very realistic, pragmatic person. I try to help people on a practical level. And I think this book is spiritual, but in a very practical sense. I want to sort of literally change how you look at the world around you and see that it's actually intensely, awesomely beautiful to be alive. And it's something that we don't think about, and how incredible it is to live in the world that we live in, which I think most people are just kind of walking around sleepwalking. So it's spiritual in that sense, you know.
Is that like live every day like it's your last?
A little bit. Yeah, I mean, when you come this close to dying like I did, you know, literally within a couple of minutes, and then you survive, it kind of changes how you look at the world. So it makes you appreciate the people around you, more grateful for what you have. And just looking around out my window, it's dark now, but just seeing the world and knowing I have a feeling when the stroke happened, like I was actually dying. I could feel it in my bones that my life was passing and that things were kind of melting from the inside. And then when you have that feeling, it kind of makes you think how insane it is to actually be alive. It kind of reconnects you to a very primal way of thinking about your body and about your just consciousness.
That's so interesting, man, because, you know, I've been in a car wreck before. I've had a gun pointed at me, and after the fact, you think to yourself, oh, I could have died. But you said you actually felt the feeling of life slipping away.
Yes, I did. I mean, I was going into a coma. I mean, I was driving my car when it happened, and my girlfriend was with me, and she just she ordered me to pull over, and then I kind of slipped into a coma. And as I was slipping into the coma, I had this very strange feeling kind of going through my body. And then, you know, I was asleep in a coma for a couple hours as they operated on me. And I also had kind of some weird visions as they were operating on me, and I came out of the coma. But it was a feeling literally of like your bones kind of melting from the inside, that life was sort of draining out of you. And, you know, I mean, it's hard to put into words, to be honest with you, because it's more a feeling. And then every now and then that feeling will return to me in just odd moments, just kind of in a flash.
Wow.
More often earlier on, but still a little bit now.
What were the visions?
Well, it's weird, Charlamagne, because I'm not quite sure whether I imagined this later or not, but I had this vision of looking down and seeing from above and seeing my mother and my girlfriend, who's now my wife, kind of there. I don't know if it was like at my funeral or what. They were like outside, and I was telling myself, everything is okay, everything will be okay. And that was the vision. I mean, that's all I can say. You know, it's kind of fading, but I remembered very distinctly.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
You know, I've made this a part of my daily repertoire. I read these with all my affirmations.
And how are you finding it?
Oh, I love it. I mean, you know, it's such a great book because, you know, it gives you the daily affirmations, but then it makes you, you know, refreshes your memory on things you've read in other books. Like, you know, today was all about integrating the shadow work, like leaning into your shadow work. Yeah, integrate the shadow side. So that comes from the laws of human nature, you know, confronting your dark side.
Right.
So the shadow work is something that I'm very interested in. When you talk about the shadow side, what do you mean?
Well, I mean that everybody has a dark side to them, and I mean every single human being. And what that is when you were a child, when you were 2 years old, 3 years old, you were like a complete human being. You had all of these emotions. Some of them were very positive and loving, but also some of them were very negative and very aggressive. You know, 2-year-olds, you put a room together of 2-year-olds and they'll be fighting and pulling each other's hair and doing all kinds of wicked things. So you have this kind of aggressive nature, and even sometimes even a little bit violent. I can remember how I was with my sister. And then slowly, as you get older, you have to kind of tamp down the rough edges of your personality. You have to learn how to get along with people. Your teacher tells you to behave this way. Your parents tell you to behave that way. And kind of this part of you that's very much active, and it was very much a part of you when you were a child, gets tamped down and repressed, and it becomes your dark side. And then if you completely ignore it, if you repress it so deeply, it will come out later in life in things in behavior that suddenly comes over you that you don't know why it happened. You know, you get angry at someone, you yell, you get even a little bit aggressive, and then like a couple hours later you go, what came over me? What was that? That was almost like somebody else inhabited my body. Or you do something really rash. We see that all the time in the news. Some entertainer or politician gets caught literally with their pants down doing something that seems extraordinarily out of character. And later they say, that wasn't me. I don't know what came over me. That's not who I am. But in fact, the shadow says that is exactly who you are. You've been trying to hide it for so many years, and it leaks out in your behavior. And the point of the chapter is to make you confront it, to make you look at your dark side, to make you look at your aggressive, ambitious impulses, your slightly, sometimes antisocial tendencies, and just simply look at it and find a way to integrate it into your personality in a positive way. And a great example is I like athletes. Athletes generally have a very strong kind of dark side, like a Kobe Bryant or a Michael Jordan, and they learn to channel it into being like very, very competitive and kind of taking it out all on the basketball court or something like that. I channel my dark side into my work, into things like the 48 Laws of Power, etc.
You know, I always told you I've been drawn to the book, The Art of Seduction, always the most out of everything that, and then I would say mastery. And one thing you talk about in here, and this balance is important, right? Displaying a hint of weakness. And sometimes it's really hard because I think this is really applicable to today with everybody on social media telling their business. And then you don't ever want to say too much because then you don't want people to be like, oh, who cares? She just wants sympathy. But then you don't want to seem perfect either. So what is that balance?
Yeah, I mean, you have to be careful. Social media is a medium where there's a lot of envy going on, where people are constantly comparing each other to themselves. And so if you appear like your life is too great, everything is just too damn wonderful, this person just has everything, you're going to be attracting a lot of envy, and that envy can be very dangerous. And that was the point of the law in the 48 Laws of never appear too perfect. So having a sense, showing some of your vulnerability, showing sometimes your weakness, having a self-deprecating humor, which I always think is very important. If I meet somebody or I see somebody in the public eye who can never, ever laugh at themselves, who can never kind of take a joke about who they are, I think something is wrong. I think there's a very strong defensive quality in them. So the ability to kind of show people that you're not perfect, that you have these flaws, I think is very, very powerful and very seductive in this world.
Yes. What inspired you to become so involved in theories of like power, persuasion, and seduction, Robert?
Well, Charlamagne, the truth is, when I first was contemplating the book, I was kind of a little bit angry, in the sense that I had had many, many different jobs prior to writing books. And my experience of the work world was not all negative. There were some good people and some good experiences. But my experience was that there were a lot of people who were extremely manipulative in this environment, very political, a lot of egos going on. I'm talking about, I worked in journalism, I worked in Hollywood, I worked in television. I also had many other different kinds of jobs. And it seems like this is kind of a natural aspect of the human being, that people want power. They want a sense of control in their life. They want to be recognized by others, and they will almost do anything they can to get it. Sometimes they do a behavior that's acceptable, and sometimes they do behavior that's not acceptable. And I witnessed a lot of this stuff going on, particularly in Hollywood, and nobody was writing about it. All the self-help books out there were just so sentimental and so, emphasizing only the positive aspect and how we all have to cooperate and get along in the world. And that wasn't my experience of what it's like, where people can be very, very political. And I had observed a lot of these things going on, and I wanted to write the book that I felt I wanted to read, that nobody else out there was writing, and kind of show the dynamics that go on that make people who are powerful, the kind of laws that they abide by, so that I could help the little guy out there like myself, people who are generally naive, because I was quite naive, navigate some of these very difficult political environments.
How do you navigate in a world like that? And I know you've spoken about identifying toxic people and making sure that your radar is good, but sometimes you can identify them, but then you still have to deal with them, like you just said, in some way. How does that work?
Well, the most important thing in dealing with really toxic people is to first recognize them, as you say. And then if you have to deal with them on a day, like they're your boss, for instance, you have to learn to control your emotions. Because what toxic people do, they learn to play on your emotions and get you angry and get you upset and get you to be thinking about them all of the time. And in that relationship, you are the weak person and they're the strong one. They know how to continually pull your strings. They can be like a narcissist can be very, very passive aggressive. They always make you feel like you are the one to blame for some kind of problem when they're the ones instigating. So a degree of detachment, the ability to stand back and not get involved in their emotional games and tell yourself, I'm not going to, this person is trying to manipulate me. I'm not going to let them enter my mental space. They can do whatever they want as long as I have some self-control, as long as I remain true to myself and I recognize what's going on. I'm not losing power in this dynamic. So that's, I think the key thing is to be able to step back and have some emotional distance from them.
I love when you talk about change is law, and how you talk about you're not tied to a particular position. Your loyalty is not to a career or company. You are committed to your life's task to give it full expression. Can you expound on that?
Yeah, well, your goal in life, what I call your life's task, is to realize what makes you different, what makes you unique, what makes you somebody who's not like anyone else. And that's where you see people who are very successful. They're kind of one of a kind. And so the problem in the world today is a lot of people are running away from what makes them different, what makes them unique. They want to be like everybody else. They want to conform. They want to do what other people are doing on social media. And they lose this contact with what separates them, what makes them unique. And so that's what you want to be loyal to. Once you discover what your life's task is, you want to go exploring, and you want to be adventurous, and you want to find out exactly what you were meant to accomplish in life. But you're going to try many different jobs until you land on it. And so the goal isn't to make a lot of money right away, or to be in a hurry to make a lot of money and fame. The goal is to discover what it is that you were destined to create. What is your source of power in this life? And that's what you want to be true to. And I had my girlfriend and I counted, I had over 60 different jobs before I started writing books. And I was moving from place to place, from place to place, because I knew I wanted to be a writer. And until I found myself, I just kept moving until I found the actual perfect job for me.
Robert, you talk about your girlfriend. I wonder, for her dating you, right? Is it, do you analyze her and like your talks, things that happen between the two of you? Because I don't know how it is for you in real life, like how you think, but in everyday activities and conversations, are you always analyzing what's happening? And then how does that work?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a problem, to be honest with you. I mean, because sometimes you have to turn it off and you have to realize that, you're just in a relationship, and you have to be forgiving with people and understand that, I too have flaws, and I too can do things that I maybe regret as well. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's something that's continually operating. And it's a good thing, really, because it makes me very sensitive to other people. So when I'm particularly with my girlfriend, who's now my wife, I'm able to get inside her, because we've been together for quite a long time. I understand her point of view, and I can recognize, it's probably difficult living with Robert Greene. He's probably not the easiest person to get along with, right? And so, things like that give me a sense of proportion. Like, I'm not the most important thing in the world. She has her own values, her own way of looking at it. It's very different from me, and so I have to have a degree of humility. But it's weird from her point of view, because she knows that I've written all of these books, and that, I'm very keen in analyzing people, and that I did write The Art of Seduction. Mm-hmm. So it makes it a little more complicated on her end. And she knows, for instance, that I used The Art of Seduction on her actually before I wrote the book. I used one of the tactics on her, and she laughs at it, and we both laugh at it. We don't take it that seriously.
Which tactic?
Well, she doesn't mind. I'll share it with you. So it was my birthday, right? And we had already had like 1 or 2 dates, and I wasn't sure how interested she was in me, right? And so I decided I was going to invite her to my birthday party. It was at a restaurant in Los Angeles. And I knew that at that party, I had lots of female friends at that time who were very beautiful. And that around this table, there would be 7 or 8 very beautiful women. And she would be coming to this party, and she would see that I was surrounded by these women who kind of liked me, and that they were, attending to me, and they were interested in me. And it kind of upped my value in her eyes. I talk about that in Creating Triangles. It's the equivalent of passing a restaurant on the street where there's nobody inside, and you kind of go, I don't think I want to go in there. Or passing a restaurant where it's packed and people are laughing and having a good time, you go, yeah, maybe I'll go in and I'll try that restaurant. So seeing that I was surrounded by other women kind of increased my value, made it seem maybe this guy is worth it. And she knows about it.
So you wouldn't recommend other guys to do that, though? I don't know if you would recommend other guys. It worked out for you. I don't know if it would work out for other guys.
I think it works out for anybody.
Really?
It works out for anybody. To show that other women desire you in some way is very, very powerful, because human beings are competitive, and women can be very competitive. And the idea that, you're not just the son of a lonely guy that nobody is interested in, it could be a little bit off-putting or something. You wonder about him. Why does he have no friends? Why are women not, how come he's never had a relationship before?
What about for women?
Right?
Does that work for women as well?
Yeah, does that work the other way around?
Yeah, does it work for women as well?
Oh, yeah, completely.
Guys are very competitive.
Yeah, definitely. And then it's always the married man or married woman syndrome, where you want to kind of steal them away. But basically understanding that our desire is very viral. We desire what other people have, what other people are desiring. And that's what marketing is all about, is creating these viral effects. If we know that other people want this product, we're motivated to go out and buy it. So it's kind of basic human psychology.
Gotcha.
Can you talk about the importance of calculated surprises?
In a seductive sense? Well, it's also, in general, but The idea is that people have this particular image of you. They see these routines and these habits, and if in a relationship or in a seduction setting, or even as a public figure, if occasionally you act against people's expectations, if you do something that goes, "Wow, I didn't know that person was capable of that. I didn't know they would say something like that," as long as it's not too negative or whatever. It kind of makes people realize, I don't really know who this person is. And it gives them an aura, a little bit of mystery. So if people can classify you and people can say, this is who Charlamagne is, they're the ones that have all the power. And they can kind of say, they can kind of create limits for who you are. But if you're the one constantly in control of the dynamic and doing things, you're not continually doing surprises. It's called calculated. If you're always surprising people, you'll seem insane, right? There's a basic background of predictability. But occasionally you do something and go, wow, I didn't know they were like that. And it kind of turns the power dynamic and it makes them wonder about you. And then it gives you room to continually surprise them.
You know, one thing that really resonated with me, especially now, is be a source of pleasure, right? You put this in your book of daily laws. And it is really draining to talk to somebody who's always complaining about everything, always has something negative to say about other people. And sometimes you have to check yourself because, like you said, a lot of this, you know, we have our own flaws also. So there might be times when you're like, I'm exhausted, I'm tired of doing all this, this sucks, this is terrible. And you have to check yourself too. And so I think that's just really important right now for people to be able to identify in themselves and to also even detach themselves from people who bring all that negative energy. And it's helped me a lot.
Well, that's good to hear. Yeah, I mean, you know, life is kind of hard. It can be sort of a grind, particularly nowadays with so many pressures that we're facing. And we don't have enough pleasure in life, right? And we don't have people who are kind of giving us that sense of pleasure. And there's simple things where, you know, how often do you get the feeling when you're in a conversation with someone or in a relationship where they're actually looking at you as an individual, where they're actually looking at you and trying to understand who you are and recognize what makes you different and recognize what your world is like? It's pretty damn rare, right? But if somebody does that, if you feel that connection where you sense that their eyes are looking and they're kind of trying to understand what it feels like to be Angela, it's very exciting and it's very pleasurable because we don't get enough of that attention and recognition. So if you go around and you're giving that to people, you're not only making them feel better, but you're also going to get some of that attention back on you. So it's very powerful.
So when is the new book coming?
Well, geez, I have to. It's gonna be a couple. It's gonna be a couple of years.
Oh, a couple of years.
I'm
He's
sorry.
like,
I'm sorry.
"Geez."
I mean, in the new book, The Daily Laws, in the month of December, I have some extracts from the new book. So I kind of teasing you with the first two chapters that I've already written. I've written three. I'm on the fourth chapter, and they're going to be about 15. So you can see I have a ways to go.
Mm-hmm. Now, I do admire the dedication and time that you put into creating these books and the amount of research that you do. You know, to me, I feel like looking from here, it is an ideal, life to be able to create these like forever, long-lasting works of art for people that have transcended time because things that you've written, a decade ago still apply today.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, the 48 Laws of Power is selling more now than it's ever sold before, so it's pretty incredible. Wow. Yeah, I'm very blessed and I'm very grateful because I could easily not be doing what I'm doing. My life could have turned in a much different negative direction. So every day I recognize that and realize I'm very, very lucky.
Wow.
Also, I do want to ask you before you go, are there ways to develop a third eye? You either have a third eye or you don't, right?
Well, it's an interesting thing. Basically, the idea is to be able to look beyond the moment and to see what might be coming in the future, what might be happening next week or next month. And I do a lot of consulting for businesses, and I try to take them through a process where what happens is we're so locked in the moment, we're so locked in and that's kind of our animal nature, that it's very hard, particularly in the world today where things are changing so quickly, to raise our heads and think of what actually is happening, what actually is going on, what is the context for these events, where are things headed, what's going to happen next week. And I make people focus on, a lot of times, on the negative things that might be brewing in the next few weeks or months, so that you don't go heading into some potential disaster with a big smile on your face and not recognizing it, right? So the third eye is basically the ability to have some kind of vision about what's going on, where you want to take yourself, where you're headed in the next months, years, and to kind of see into the future and be able to be a little bit clairvoyant. And I know it sounds weird, but actually very powerful people, sort of the most brilliant strategists and thinkers, are able to sort of see trends as they're happening. They can kind of almost glimpse into the future and look at potential disasters. So, I've been screaming when the election just happened in November. I saw that it was coming. I saw the debacle and what was going to happen in Virginia and possibly in New Jersey, because I've been studying it very deeply, and I do some consulting with political people. And I often see politicians that they just have no awareness of kind of the disasters that are kind of brewing. They have this blindness, and I see it also in a lot of people in business. So the third eye is the ability to kind of anticipate what might be happening tomorrow or next week or next year.
We appreciate you for joining us this morning. Thank you so much.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you. Now I'm going to go back to bed.
All right, my brother. All right, Robert.
I'm jealous.
All right, Robert Greene is the Breakfast Club. Good morning.